edition. I'm delighted to welcome you all on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, UN Environment, FICCI, as well as GIZ India. And I'm delighted to see the stellar cast of panelists we have today who are actually going to tell you about how we can actually deal with single-use plastics on a daily basis. With the ministry's leadership, under the ministry's leadership, we've actually launched this awareness program, which is focusing on 4 themes. The themes are enhancing awareness on single-use plastics, about providing information on single-use plastics, providing alternatives to plastics and rethinking packaging itself, and also thinking about value chain actors, including the informal sector. And I'm delighted that we have representatives on the panel who are actually going to talk about informality as well. And finally, of course, to talk about extended producer responsibility, which is one of the cornerstones of plastic waste management in this country, as well as, of course, the role of big producers. I'm glad that we have representatives from that arena as well. So very basic ground rules, please mute your microphones if you're not talking. Please stick to the time that is allocated to you. And I'm really excited that we have a fairly large group of people who are actually listening to all of us. And we have, of course, a diversity of stakeholders who are actually going to address us today. So without further ado and not taking too much of your time, because I will actually get to speak right at the end as well, I would now hand over to Mr. Atul Bagai, who's the head of UN Environment in India and who's been really sort of a thought leader on sustainable consumption and production in this country. So Atul, over to you for setting the context.
Thank you, Ashish. And I would like to particularly recognize Pradeep Kumarji, the chairman of Kerala State Pollution Control Board, Supriya Sahuji, the principal secretary to Government, Department of Environment, Climate Change and Forests, Government of Tamil Nadu. My friend Naresh Pal Gangwar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and his team. And of course, our partners, FICCI and GIZ, on this very, very proactive and forward-looking initiative that the Ministry of Environment has formulated and initiated and started. I have been asked to very briefly set the context for today's event. And I, while doing that, remember that historic announcement that the Prime Minister of India had made in 2018, where he announced that India would phase out single-use plastic by end of 2022. And this announcement was certainly very forward-looking. I would almost say a very revolutionary announcement, because no other country in the world at that time was really looking at setting a deadline for phasing out single-use plastic, considering how important it was to our daily life. But I think reducing plastic waste, and especially single-use plastic, is a key priority for the Government of India. In fact, in our assembly, in our 4th assembly in Nairobi, India piloted a resolution on addressing single-use plastic and product pollution, which was adopted with consensus from all member states. And I must also highlight that India's environmental leadership in this regard also led to almost 50 to 60 other developing countries in the world adopt similar kind of bans or resolutions in terms of setting a deadline for phasing out single-use plastic. And within that context, I think this initiative of the Ministry of Environment of raising awareness is very, very critical and important, because a behavioral change is really the need of the hour for dealing with the plastic waste. And we are very happy to be working with GIZ, FICCI and MOE FCC on these awareness campaigns. I will also highlight the context from a South India perspective, which is the main focus of this workshop and today's webinar. And South India, with its huge 7,000 plus kilometers of coastline, is one of the most critical geographical areas in India for addressing single-use plastic issues. And I think from that perspective, this is a very important webinar today. And also want to highlight that South India has been in the forefront of tackling this issue. And if I start citing the kind of innovative practices that South Indian civil society, the South Indian governments from various states have taken over the past few years, that list is really endless. And I'll try to highlight the Green Protocol in Kerala, the work Sahas and Hasiara Dala is doing in Bengaluru, the plastic pollution-free Tamil Nadu, the 7 to 9 Green Store or the Banyan Nation work. These are a few works and initiatives which are path-breaking and will show a lot of enterprise also for the other parts of the country. I will only like to highlight that UNEP is supportive of all these efforts. We have working with the Norwegian and the Japanese government to address this issue in India. And we are also launched a Tide Turner's Plastic Challenge for the youth on addressing the plastic use and also addressing the single-use plastic. By saying that this whole issue will be critical and will only succeed if it is a coordinated effort from government, from the business, from the civil society and the citizens. And it is imperative that they come together to address this issue. And this awareness campaign, which the ministry has launched, is a very good example in this direction. Thanks a lot for inviting UNEP for this workshop.
Thanks very much, Atul, for setting the context and also citing examples from what's happening in South India. Very, very much appreciated. And of course, the UN Environment is doing a lot as far as single-use plastic agenda in this country is concerned. So it's great to have this partnership with UN Environment as well as the ministry. Now I'd like to move to the focal person on, who's actually behind a lot of the initiatives which are happening in the government of India. And actually a lot of energy because of him on the issue of single-use plastics. So over to you, Mr. Gangwar, who's actually the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, responsible for the Hazardous Substance Management Division. And yeah, please, everybody I think is waiting to hear from you. So delighted to have you on the panel.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to talk. Mr. Pradeep Kumar, Chairman, Kerala State Pollution Control Board. I think Mrs. Supriya Sahu she has not been able to join. I think she will be joining us during the later part of the day. My friend Mr. Bagai from UNEP, Mr. Chaturvedi from Climate Change and Circular Economy Division of CIG, and fellow speakers, participants. First of all, I would like to welcome all the participants on behalf of the ministry and my own behalf in this Southern Regional event being organized under awareness campaign on single-use plastics with the help of UNEP, GIZ and FICCI. As you are all aware, and Mr. Bagai also talked about, that realizing the importance of abating plastic pollution, in 2018, Honorable Prime Minister gave this mandate and a call that single-use plastics will be eliminated for our environment by 2022. And this being a very big task which has been assigned to the ministry and to everybody who are part and parcel of this mission. As you know that over a period of 70 years, last 60, 70 years, plastic has become part and parcel of our life. And as long as it doesn't affect or doesn't get littered and reaches our rivers and oceans, it is not a bad thing. It becomes bad only when it is littered and it reaches our rivers and ocean and affects the marine life and has other environmental impact. And that is where it is emerging as a major global challenge. The entire world is talking about it, and the entire world is aware about the effects. And that is how we piloted a resolution on single-use plastics in UNIA and attracted the attention of the entire world towards this problem. And since then, we have been evolving a national strategy on single-use plastic and the plastic pollution. Our strategy is primarily focusing on concept of circular economy and the principles of 6 R's. That is reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, redesign, and remanufacture. And we are all aware that in 2016, we came up with Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016, which provides statutory framework for plastic waste management in country. And the framework is, is very simple. It says that whatever can be collected should be recycled or reused, or whatever cannot be collected should be reduced to the extent possible. And therefore, in the rules of 2016, we have a prohibition on manufacturing, import, stocking, distribution, sale, and use of carry bags, which is very difficult to collect, and that is what is causing the biggest environmental hazard Then there are certain more items which are difficult to collect, and that is why we brought a new draft notification on 11th March 2021 for amending Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016 for including certain identified single-use plastic items which have got low utility but have got very high adverse environmental impacts because they are very difficult to collect, and most of the time you'll find them littered here and there and finally impacting our environment. And then we are working on a multi-pronged strategy to address this problem. And that includes awareness generation and behavioral changes. And that is why we are here today. And this is just the beginning of our work on awareness generation and behavioral change. I think in times to come, we'll continue to engage on these things with the stakeholders. That includes ULBs, state governments, pollution control boards, general public, and maybe the NGOs who are working in this space. Then putting in a regulatory regime for phasing out of identified single-use plastics items having low utility and high littering potential. I've already told that we have already brought in notification for amendment in plastic waste management rules, engaging with the stakeholders, that is primarily ULBs, our state pollution control boards, and then other organizations which are working in this space, strengthening the institutional mechanism for collection, segregation, recycling, and environmentally sustainable end-of-life disposal of plastic waste, as envisaged in plastic waste management rules. There, I think urban local bodies are a very important stakeholder. And we are all aware that under SBM 2.0, major focus is being laid on the management of plastic waste by ULBs. And I think Ministry of Urban Housing and Urban Affairs, Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs is focusing on this issue of plastic pollution in SBM 2.0. We are also trying to build a national action plan on abating this plastic pollution issue, and we have requested states to form state-level task force under the Chief Secretary so that it attracts the attention at the highest level in the state governments and gets the kind of priority which it should be getting at the state level, because most of the action and implementation would take place at the state government level and at the level of ULBs and Gram Panchayats. We have also requested state governments to prepare a comprehensive action plan on elimination of single-use plastics and implementation of plastic waste management rules in letter and spirit, primarily on the strategy and principles of 6 R's and circular economy, So states are now preparing their comprehensive action plans, and everything put together will become a national action plan on abatement of plastic pollution. We have also requested the concerned ministries and Government of India to prepare their action plans for elimination and improving our management of plastic waste in the country. And you are all aware that the core of our plastic waste management rule is the extended producer responsibility. So a lot of responsibility is being given to the producers, importers, and brand owners, and maybe sheet manufacturers, and whosoever is putting plastic in our lives in different manners. So that is the main stake of our plastic waste management rule and the strategy for strengthening collection and recycling and end-of-life disposal of the plastic. So we have been working on the guidelines for improving the implementation of EPR regime in this country, and very soon those guidelines will also be be issued, and we hope that we will be able to put up a very strong and effective mechanism for improving compliance of EPR obligations by the various stakeholders with the support and participation from them. A national level task force under the chairmanship of Secretary Environment has also been constituted, which will be supervising the work of being done by the various ministries and the state governments, and also providing direction to this mission, which we have started with the announcement by the Chief Prime Minister. Few activities which we started recently include this program on awareness generation with the help from Itc, UNEP, and GIZ. And this program is going to continue for 3 months, and then thereafter again we will start engaging with all the stakeholders in some form or the other. And a hackathon has been started to primarily focusing on developing alternatives for single-use plastics items. These are the certain things, some things which we have been doing for last few months, and I hope that with the support of all the stakeholders, especially urban local bodies, state governments, state pollution control boards, and the organizations who are working in this domain, and organizations like UNEP and GIZ, they are all helping us, that we will be able to achieve and live up to the expectations which have been put on us by Honorable Prime Minister or regarding implementation of elimination of single-use plastics by 2022, and also improving the plastic waste management infrastructure in the country with participation from everybody. I would like to congratulate Itc and UNEP and GIZ for organizing such a good program. I've been told that another one event of this sort has already been organized for Northern region. I look forward for participation from all the speakers and all the participants in this movement, which we are trying to create on the issue of single-use plastics through all these programs. And again, I would like to welcome everybody here, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Gangwar, for sharing these sort of comprehensive, or providing a comprehensive overview of what Government of India is doing in this area. And also, I'm delighted to see the strategic approach that you've taken and that you have in mind of engaging with the state governments, also looking at a whole of government approach for single-use plastic management. So great to see the strategic orientation, and I'm sure the results will be there to see in some time soon. Now we turn to, as Mr. Gangwar was mentioning, that we're actually trying to work with state governments, and this is a Southern region event. So delighted to actually welcome Mr. Pradeep Kumar, who's the chairman of the Kerala State Pollution Control Board. We actually, as GIZ, are also very happy that we're actually working with the state government of Kerala on this issue of plastics and marine litter. And under his leadership, the state government is actually developing its own strategy and action plan, as Mr. Gangwar was mentioning, on tackling single-use plastics. So over to you, Mr. Pradeep Kumar. for your inputs and remarks. You have to unmute yourself. We can't hear.
Okay, good morning. Now I am audible, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes.
So respected dignitaries, eminent speakers, and all eager participants, we are going to talk on a topic which actually is one of the biggest inventions of the 20th century, which has turned a waste and a threat for the environment in the 21st century. Plastic waste has become a serious concern globally as well as locally also. Single-use plastic items form a significant portion of the littered waste. The issue of littering in marine, riverine, and lake ecosystems is of serious concern to all the states in India and especially to Kerala also. Because I've gone through a survey recently and I find that I'm shocked that Kerala is in terms of production, Kerala doesn't come anywhere near the other states. But in terms of production of waste, Kerala, it's very high in Kerala. The proportion is very high. The Kerala backwaters, rivers, coastline are all impacted because of this plastic waste. Significant action has been initiated in Kerala. Like Naresh Pal said, we have already formed a committee, a task force headed by the Chief Secretary, and we have the secretaries of the local self-government, the industries, and also the State Pollution Control Board chairman. Myself is also a member of that committee. But so far, I think the action that we could take has been limited because of various issues, like various stakeholders in this particular issue of plastic. Already we have issued orders for the complete ban on single-use plastic carry bags, irrespective of the thickness of the state. I understand that other states have banned, many states have banned of the single-use plastic where the thickness is limited to 50 micron or something. But in Kerala, right in 2020 itself, we have banned the full use of these single-use plastic carry bags, especially, and plastic sheets, plastic cups and decorative materials made of thermocol, then single-use plastic utensils like cup, plates, dishes, spoons, forks, straws, stirrer, etc. But in spite of all this ban, because of this COVID maybe, all these items which have been banned have come back to the market. And we can see a lot of litter happening here and there. Now people have mentioned, I've seen the records that there is already a huge island of plastic waste in Pacific Ocean. Maybe in terms of that island, our island would be much less, but proportionally, if you look into a water system or into our ecosystem, we'll find those kind of small plastic islands everywhere. It could be in the water system or in the land system also. In the light of the ban, Kerala government is also trying to promote alternate materials. We have not been successful there also so far. For instance, for banned materials, several alternatives were also proposed, like plastic carry bags can be replaced by cloth and paper bags. Initially, it was good. Many of the supermarkets, I've seen that they had opted for cloth bags. But now, since COVID has come back, I don't know why it's because of COVID or not, the plastic bags are again in use. The Kerala waste management model has been appreciated by all. It's a unique with the role of the empowered governmental institutions like Sujitwa Mission under the local self-government department, the Haritha Kerala Mission, Kudumbashree, the Clean Kerala Company, which is partly funded by the state government also. These government organizations, the urban local bodies and Grama Panchayats are supported by the Kerala State Pollution Control Board. But in spite of all these activities, I should say that we are yet to see some good results coming up. As we aim for sustainable growth and development, the issue of littering calls for partnerships and collaborations for effective management and systemic transformation. As the goal 17 of Sustainable Development Goals call for partnerships to mobilize, share knowledge, expertise, technologies, and financial resources, I would like to acknowledge the cooperation of India and Germany in the field of targeting the avoidance of marine litter. The Kerala State Pollution Control Board is happy to be a part of a unique project by German Development Agency. In short, we call it GIZ, GIZ. A little bit tough for me to pronounce since the word is mostly in German language. The project is titled Circular Economy Solutions Preventing Marine Litter in Ecosystems. The project focuses on the demonstration of technological approaches to track, monitor, and manage litter in marine ecosystems of Kerala and support the implementation of extended producer responsibility, which Sir was mentioning earlier. This is being done in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. To get results, it is important to ensure effective cross-border cooperation and coordination in sharing of good practices, but also encouraging the implementation of existing policies, promoting the construction of specific local, national, and global networks. Public awareness campaigns that engage and educate local communities on plastic waste can spur community action and affect consumer choices. This campaign is really unique as it aims at creating awareness on single-use plastics in a systemic manner by not only talking about these single-use materials, but also identifying and engaging with stakeholders that are closely related to plastic waste management. I really hope that today's seminar will be a success and a great initiative in this regard. Hope maybe at the end of this seminar, we can have a good resolution taken, and that would take us forward to a good extent in future. So thank you all. I'll be joining soon. I have another meeting by the Chief Secretary, so I was actually hurrying through my talk. I'll be joining after that meeting, which may take about half an hour. Definitely, I'll be joining after that. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Pradeep Kumar. Thank you, Chair. Well, as the chairman of in Kerala, you've actually been really very forthcoming and forthright in your approach in dealing with this challenge. And of course, Kerala has a lot of institutional innovations. A lot of these things would actually be good that we're actually sharing them at this platform, because a lot of other states might actually need certain institutional innovations, which Kerala has already made. But of course, a lot needs to be done still. And therefore, I think it's great that we can actually exchange experiences while also acknowledging that a lot needs to be done pretty much all over the country still. So thank you so very much, and it would be very good if you could come back and join.
Thank you.
Ms. Sahu is currently not on the call, and as I've heard, I think she's actually going to land in Chennai and then join us. So we would continue the agenda. And then we will come back to Ms. Sahu, Ms. Supriya Sahu, when she is back. So I'd now like to call upon Ms. Nalini Balakrishnan. Yes, I think we have a couple of Nalinis. So I'm just Veena Balakrishnan. Sorry. Yes, my apologies, Veena. So we have Veena Balakrishnan, who's the founder of Everwords India, which is a zero-waste lifestyle brand that focuses on creating relatable, accessible, and affordable solutions. Today, Everwords is creating alternatives to plastics, which are originally products which are made originally from plastics, and also working on socially inclusive supply chains. So we just heard from the chairperson of the Kerala State Pollution Control Board, as well as from Mr. Gangwar, that we really need to start thinking about alternatives. And it's good to actually have someone on our panel who's already working on this. It's a relatively new company. It started in 2018, but I'm sure, Veena, you have stories to share with all of us. So over to you. You have, I think, by the agenda, you have 15 minutes. So please stick to that. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the warm welcome. I am definitely keeping my timer and having it on at the moment, so I hope I don't really cross my time limit. But give me 10 seconds. I'm going to try and share my screen so that my presentation is visible to everybody. Please tell me if you can see my presentation.
Yes, you can see it now.
Perfect. All right. So before I go into the presentation itself, thank you very much once again for having me over here. Today, when I was called to give a talk on single-use plastic and alternatives, I thought, how about maybe make this talk into something where I make people think, not just giving them alternatives to plastic, but after this talk, my hope is that everybody who's listening to, who has tuned in today, can think wherever they look around, alternatives to plastic for the things that are available today. And I think, I really hope I can inspire that. But before I go into the whole thing, I want to give a short introduction to me too. So I'm going to talk about it in 4 stages. The first one being my childhood. I grew up in a very regular middle class South Indian family. And for us, resources was equal to money. I mean, you don't buy anything, you save money, right? Like, because you don't have enough money. And you just grow up. I mean, when you do this, you grow up, you realize you don't really buy a lot of things. For example, I'm in the center over here, and in this picture here, and I'm wearing a frock which I wore for 10 years after that picture was taken. And also it later went on to my cousins, and then I think I vaguely remember it becoming a floor mat in the house also. And then anyway, I became a teenager, and then I realized that I wanted to continue to work in resources and like bring about a change in the environment. And I was in Scouts and Guides, and I did a lot of these, no plastic drives, no plastic is fantastic drives, in school days, which is pretty cool. Then I became a young adult and I joined a lot of NGOs because I realized I wanted to find my purpose in life and then, work with the purpose. I didn't know what purpose at that point. I also went to fashion school, which really was a revelation for me because I really understood the unsustainable side of fashion while I was there, and that just opened my mind to so many different ideas. Still a young adult today. So I can proudly say I found my purpose in life, and today I try to align my purpose with my work. And when I say purpose, what do you think I'm talking about? I think for me, my purpose has strongly become something that I really care about, which is the environment, which is the ecosystem, which is the biodiversity, and us as a community. And I want to bring all of this together, the society, the economy, and the biodiversity, and see how can we bring equitable outcomes for all of us together and develop forward by being compassionate to each other. So having said that, I am deeply committed to finding solutions for things that we think as problem today. But I feel like sometimes, problem itself is defined by us. Like plastic use problem is a problem because we are using plastic. If we didn't use it, wouldn't be a problem at all, right? So anyway, I'm so committed to it that actually I'm in Germany right now, and I had to wake up at 5 in the morning and get ready for this talk. So just saying, yeah. Anyway. Now, I want to talk about what reminded me to go back to my childhood and live waste-free and to be sustainable. And interestingly, it was a text talk that I saw once in 2017 or 16, and it really stuck to me. Somebody called Bea Johnson. She was living a zero waste lifestyle. She was not making any trash, not just she, her entire family. And I was like, wow, how is it even possible? And she was living somewhere in the US. And then I thought, if somebody there can do it, as Indians, we should be able to do it, right? Because I feel like traditionally we have been a sustainable country. If you look back, all our practices are actually quite sustainable, be it because we had to save money, or we are predominantly a more developing country with more middle class and lower middle class economy. So what happens is that we inevitably try to save money. So it's like, if people outside India we should definitely be able to live zero waste and not really create any plastic trash. And this is classic examples, right? For example, stainless steel glasses instead of a water bottle at events, or sun drying your pulses and your leaves and plant-based items, and then going to a mill and making powders on your own, like your atta to everything. Or like handkerchiefs, we have the habit of handkerchiefs. This is not a habit in many other countries in the world. And like we use, for example, over here, we use the coconut leaves to make broomsticks in our houses. So these are some alternatives to plastic that is a part of our culture, and that's something that we've been living. Some other examples like paper bag. We actually always get newspapers in our houses. We can make paper bags at home if we want to. We can get crafty. You can dye. You can do a lot of natural dyeing at home if you want, because we have a lot. Being a tropical country, we have abundance of fruits and vegetables that render beautiful colors. So what I'm trying to say here is that plastic free is actually quite easy for us as Indians. And this is another example that I wanted to show with like really colorful, very healthy diet, and it's all plastic free meals. I mean, eating plastic free is also very easy when you cook at home. So having said that, I want to go back a little one more time. I'm going to think about my childhood and talk about some products that I didn't find. And maybe while I do this, I can also, relate and see if you can also think of some things. For example, when I was a child, I can't remember a Coca-Cola bottle entering my house. We didn't buy those things. We didn't buy shampoo bottles. I used something called Arapu instead. My dad used Shikakai, but it dried my hair, so I never used that. I used Arapu. We didn't have plastic bags also entering our houses, no plastic brushes. My grandfather used to make brooms from his coconut, tree in the house. So I just couldn't think of, these things were not there at all. And then fast forward a decade or 15 years later, buying Coca-Cola at home was normal. Sorry, I should not mention a brand. I would say soft drinks. Buying soft drinks was normal at home. We were buying chips in plastic packets. We were also buying shampoos. We had transitioned from our Arapu lifestyle to shampoos. And when I think about it, I don't know if it's because of relatability now that, I can relate better to these products, so we're buying it, or is it because it's accessible because of globalization? Getting it a lot, like it's so common and we can buy it. Is that why we're buying it? Or is it because it has become affordable for us? And I'm sure a lot of you will find similar examples from your childhood when you look back. And there's only one thing that I can say. I wanted to take these three words that I told, relatable, accessible, and affordable, and really use them to bring back those concepts that were there in our culture already. And that's exactly what I did with Everwords. So I try to make traditional Indian, I took inspiration for going plastic free from our everyday, life, how it has been traditionally in India, in our culture, in our traditions. All over the country, we have plastic free traditional values. So I wanted to take that and then make it relatable again, make it affordable again, and make it accessible again. So how we did that? Now that's the most interesting part, at least for me. So started rethinking how products have to be designed itself. How can you make sure that you can still have the same product, same utility, but with alternative materials? How can the packaging be, or can I even go package free? Because packaging half the time is actually, the moment you take it home, it's going to end up in your dustbin. So can you go package free? And the next thing that I did was redesigning supply chain. And when I say that, what I mean is when you a lot of local producers, a lot of grassroots, traditional, rural producers still work on a lot of materials that I was talking to you about today. So how about we bring them into our urban supply chain? If we do that, it's so easy for us to actually start accessing these plastic-free alternatives. Interestingly, this also stays close to my values of trying to integrate the society and have, a societal development, social innovation, along with plastic-free alternatives as innovation. So the next thing I did was reimagine materials itself. Okay, so I have a handkerchief right now. Okay, I can still buy a regular handkerchief, but how about I start upcycling fabric waste? Because we know we have a lot of factories in India. We have a lot of excess supply. Sometimes minute, issues in the fabric gets rejected because of quality. So there's a lot of materials that are actually going waste in our country. So how about, reimagine how we use our materials, even for the products that are also sustainable on their own. So these are some things that I did. And then the last one I want to talk about, which is the most important one, which is the consideration of end of life of anything. Okay, now you bought something, and how do you, dispose it? Keeping that in mind. Anyway, having said that, these are some of the products that we developed. Let's say, so this is a coffee scrub. It's made from kitchen waste, kitchen coffee waste. So we worked with cafes within the city with known for amazing quality coffee, and then we tried to source them, and then we made beautiful skincare products that were at par with other skincare products that are also made with similar materials. So redefine packaging. For example, I know stainless steel, once that enters the household of, I mean, in an Indian household, it never goes out of the house. I remember there are containers that are 100 years old in my house and it never steps out. So knowing Indian psychology, Indian behavior, like packaging with stainless steel made a lot of sense. And then we upcycled, we used a lot of fabric waste. And these spoons and cutleries you see here, they are made of coconut waste. Some more examples of, like here I spoke about package free, where you can simply, like, this is a bar of soap and we sold it package free and we had amazing response to it, and customers were actually happy to receive products without packaging. Traditional designs, like this is called Kungumachimil in Tamil. I don't know in the other regional languages what it is called, but this we used for balms and packaging for different kind of balms. Coir, which is very traditional again for us, we use it instead of brushes. And then this is Crunchies, hair bands upcycled. So also try to redefine marketing so that we can appeal to the younger generation and make it really cool for them to actually go back to using these things. So the most important thing for me is alternatives to plastic is definitely around us, and the world is taking inspiration from us today. For example, there are so many zero waste stores that are coming up in the world today. They're called refillable stores or zero waste stores. And actually, it is our local Malliga Kadai, like the Kirana store, because that is exactly what zero waste store is. You can actually take your container. There'll be bulk produce, and then you buy whatever you want. If you go to other e-commerce websites, you see airtight containers, no more Tupperware and no more other plastic products. It's actually stainless steel that they're using, and they sell it. It's freaking expensive too. And then brushes, plastic-free alternatives for the brushes is actually our tenga and the coconut fibers and other palm fibers, etc. So it's wonderful to see the world taking inspiration from us, and I feel like it's time we stepped up a little more and took inspiration from our own past. One important thing that I want to leave with is to say that we can make sustainable decisions at every level, because sometimes we think, oh, I am just a consumer. I'm not able to make decisions because the brands are not like allowing me to. No, that's wrong. Like, as I started as a consumer, and then I became a producer because I was trying to do different things, and I realized I'm able to do so many things. I should be able to take it to people and help them also find their sustainable alternatives to plastic. You can make it as a consumer, you can make it as a producer, you can make it as an organization, you can make it as in a community level, you can make it as at a country level. So all of us can make sustainable decisions. Having said that, I wanted to show an example video of level effort that I took at a community level. My wedding was a zero waste affair where I had 700 guests and I had zero trash that was sent into landfills. I'm unfortunately running out of time, so the link is in YouTube if you would like to go and watch it. But I'm going to take another 1 more minute to explain just like a basic idea of what happened there. So for example, we had used a lot of plastic-free alternatives, made sustainability cool again, made it inclusive, made sure that the community did not create troubles for us to say that, oh, why are you making it sustainable? Why don't we have plastic bottles? So we used that opportunity to educate our guests and tell them why we were doing something. And actually, when we did that, we realized every single person was happy. So I know that even behavior change is not so difficult. You just need to know how to communicate and also probably share it the way it has to be shared, and it can be accepted. Having said that, these are some of my key takeaways. Look around and look back. You will find alternatives to sustainability and alternatives to single-use plastics everywhere around you. Like I told you, the Kirana store to your tiffin dabbas to your stainless steel plates, everything is actually a sustainable alternative. And we can borrow a lot of things from our tradition. If India cannot do it, I don't think any other country can. And I think that's one important message that I want to leave behind. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Veena, for this impassioned plea and also a fantastic presentation on how individual action can actually make a major contribution as well. And of course, we're actually looking at systemic solutions and individual contributions together. So thanks very much for your insights into what you're trying to do and what you've learned in this journey, in this very personal journey. So thanks very much for sharing that personal journey as well. As a child and right down to your marriage, I think that's as personal as one can get to bring the personal and the professional together. So thanks very much.
Absolutely.
I'd like to, so before we move on to Vilma Rodriguez, just a very quick request. All those who are in the audience, please feel free to post your questions for the panelists or in general in the chat box. And I think there are multiple options, so please do share your questions. We will take them towards the end of this session. I'm delighted to welcome Vilma Rodriguez, who's the founder and CEO of Sahas Zero Waste. Someone I've been very fortunate to know over the last 15 years at least, working on climate change, waste management, resource sustainability. So, Vilma, you've been working on waste management for several decades now, well, at least decades. So, really interested to listen to you about your perspective on extended producer responsibility. So today you have the chance to tell the producers what you think and what you would expect, and of course as a partner for implementation of extended producer responsibility as well. So over to you, Vilma. You have
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ashish, and thank you for all the organizers for giving us this opportunity. Just give me a minute to share my screen so that I can quickly, just one second. Yeah. So I was really happy to, hear Veena speak because really, what we are looking above all is to reduce. Yeah, our lives have definitely become more convenient because of plastic, especially single-use plastic. But there is that large inconvenient truth which we can't run away from. And that is the problems that plastic has, that plastic in terms of not just the management of the plastic, but also at every stage of production, the chemicals that are used. So definitely, as we are talking about concerns of the environment, our first concern should be how do we reduce these large volumes of plastic that is entering our systems and our environment. So of course, I'm going to be talking about the implementation of EPR and what we as an organization have done to, reduce the volumes of plastic getting into the ecosystem in terms of our water and air and even the mountains. Yeah. So as an organization, Sahas Zero Waste, we are a private limited, but our business model is embedded in social and environmental change. So our entire approach in terms of the business model is how do we run our systems and our business in line with what is expected for us to bring environmental and social change. And today, environmental and social change is so well defined in the form of sustainable development goals. And that's what we are always connecting with. How do we bring that impact? And that impact gets visible and is reflected in the SDGs. So our business model, therefore, we have three verticals very, very quickly. The first vertical is looking at how do we have zero waste campuses? So how do we have bulk generators, which make up 40% of the city's waste or even our towns, the waste that is generated in the towns of India? How do we make them zero waste? That is something that we do, a lot in South India, but now also looking at other cities in the north. Extended producer responsibility for e-waste and plastic waste. That's our second vertical, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. But finally, in our third vertical, we look to introduce consumers to recycled products to make sure that whatever waste you generate goes back, is recycled and comes back. So that's how you close the loop, and that's how you recover materials so that they get into the loop. So of course, we work with a lot of brands for EPR. We work with HUL, we work with the Coca-Cola, we work with ITC, a lot of brands, but we also work with companies like Microsoft, etc., who are our zero waste partners and whom we have been able to demonstrate that 96% of all the waste that they generate in their campus goes into collection and recycling. Our journey, we've been around for a good 20 years. I started Sahas as a not-for-profit, but then a second entity we started in 2013 when we looked at raising investments, small rounds of investment, so that we could grow and scale our solutions. So today we do have a geographical presence which is pan-India, especially for EPR across all the states, and we bring to all of these cities exactly now what we're doing in South India as well. There are some hard facts about plastic. I remember when I started working with plastic waste in 2001. At that time, India was generating 2.5 kgs a per capita consumption. And today, this figure has grown to 11 kgs. And actually, this is a little bit of an outdated number. What we are actually generating is about closer to 20 kgs per capita. A lot of this plastic, 10,000 tons per day, remains uncollected, and 80% of it is packaging waste. So packaging waste, all of us are consumers here, which we can definitely have an expectations from our brands and from companies and from the government to reduce. When you're looking at EPR now, because EPR has become this mechanism by which we will at least make sure that plastic gets properly collected and goes into a closed loop kind of recycling. So that is where we really need to make sure that today there is an opportunity for all the stakeholders to not just look at compliance as collection, but look at it as an opportunity to have a holistic system in place. A holistic system which will also have proper recycling, a holistic system which will have social inclusion, will make sure that people working with waste will be properly also have a dignified livelihood. So EPR must go beyond just those volumes and numbers which brands are expected to collect. The next thing is the holistic waste management system. See, you can't just pluck plastic out and believe that will take care of our problems, because plastic is very closely part of all the dry waste that is generated. All that dry waste in the form of paper and metal and glass, the plastic is within that. So you need to have a holistic system which addresses the wet waste, which looks at all the other dry waste, and then you can also recover plastic. So that is also something that EPR needs to look at. And finally, today we are happy that as a waste management agency that is recognized by so many brands, that works with many brands, we then become a kind of a glue, working with the government and working with brands and consumers, so that there will be a holistic system that we have kind of put in place. So how do we bring these stakeholders together? Because that's so important. The bringing together, being the glue. And if you're looking at where it starts with our regulatory bodies, with our CPCB, our Pollution Control Board, our State Pollution Control Board. They have mandated brands to take responsibility for all the waste, and the brands are therefore expected to register with the CPCB and pass on that information of how much they have generated, how much have they collected, and how much have they avoided going into the system. And then there are organizations like Sahas Zero Waste, who is a recognized WMA, that then works with the brands through a service fee that brands pay us so that we can execute their responsibilities. And we in turn then reach out to the gram panchayats, we reach out to the urban local bodies, who then partner with us so that we can enable that collection to happen. Again, there's a lot of data, information, etc., that is expected from us. And we in turn then also work with the other generators. It could be in Bangalore or in Chennai, the dry waste collection centers, the waste pickers, the bulk generators. That's where our zero waste program becomes useful, because we work directly with the generator and we purchase waste then from a lot of the dry waste collection centers and also the waste picker colonies, and that money then is also coming from the brand owner who is paid us through a service fee. And finally, of course, we have a partnership with the end destination, the recyclers, because the recyclers, now we've collected all of this waste, but we do need them. The big problem really currently is that we don't have enough of infrastructure for recycling. So a lot of this waste, almost 60 to 70%, instead of being recycled, goes for co-processing. It's an interim solution, we hope, but we would like that there will be more recycling, more closed loop recycling, because all of us today are talking about circular economy. So that's the kind of ecosystem that we have as an EPR WMA, working with all of these stakeholders. So as I mentioned at the start, our roadmap is towards delivering on SDGs. Yeah, and today we have 17 SDGs, and through this work, we are able to show definite impact and definite results in terms of the SDGs. But to reach these SDGs, to actually bring these SDGs into a live mode with real results on the ground, you need comprehensive waste management. There's no running away from that. And as an organization committed to environmental and social impact, we do believe that the roadmap for that is decentralized waste management. Manage your waste in every ward in a city, in every village panchayat. Be self-sufficient, because that's how we will generate good jobs and maximum resource recovery of 96%. You need infrastructure. There needs to be investment today in infrastructure, investment which has not been made in, I would say, 60 to 70 years in India. That investment today is the time when all our infrastructure for collection, for sorting in the form of material recovery facilities, for recycling. Yeah, all the investment we hope that is going out of big oil and big oil companies should now come into proper waste management systems. We need entrepreneurs, and we need entrepreneurs with business models who will deliver on environmental and social change. We need the informal sector, and I think Nalini will talk next. We need them to come in with dignified jobs. But we need all of these three things first before we start talking about technology. Because today we see, and there is a belief that technologies will solve our problems. Technology is an enabler. If you don't have 1, 2, 3 and just have technology, you're not going to be able to deliver on those SDGs. And finally, you need business models. Yeah, business models which will pay us so that we can run our businesses viably. So you do need EPR, which is what I mentioned about today. Plastic credits is becoming another form of revenues. There are revenues coming from ocean-bound plastics. So all of these are now possibilities, but we definitely need brands to understand that we should be, having proper systems in place. So this is what I want to bring to you today. And I hope that, there will be the understanding that EPR for plastic, EPR for e-waste has now started showing results. And perhaps this is the time for us to also talk about EPR for textiles, which is a huge problem, EPR for glass, which can be recycled but is not being recycled, EPR for paper, because today when we're talking about alternatives, we seem to be going towards paper, but paper is also a very polluting industry. So my submission is, let's get everybody responsible, the consumer as well as government and of course industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vilma. Vilma, you might want to mute otherwise here. Thanks very much. Yeah, so well, thanks very much for sharing your perspective as an organization which is actually serving as a service provider for implementation of EPR. And of course, we'll actually hear from the other side as well. But what I take from your presentation is essentially this very important point of EPR being sort of synonymous with stakeholder engagement, partnerships, and bringing different stakeholders together. And also the fact that technology is an enabler is not the silver bullet, which is actually going to solve all problems by itself. So before we move on to Nalini, because Vilma already referred to, we are also very happy that Ms. Sahu, Supriya Sahu, has been able to join us. She was on her way to Chennai, but I think she's managed to join us. So I would actually now request Supriya Sahu, who is the Principal Secretary in the government of Tamil Nadu, who is also responsible for, well, the Environment Department, but also plastic waste management in the state of Tamil Nadu. So, ma'am, it would be great to hear your perspective on plastics and on single-use plastics and what you're planning to do and what your sort of initiatives are, and what would be your guidance to all of us. So, over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish, and thank you to the entire team for their patience, because I think it has been like a roller coaster ride, whether I'll be able to join, not able to join. So thank you. I really truly appreciate that you waited. And so without wasting much of the time, first of all, thank you again for this opportunity. And I think this is a very, very important and a very timely, discussion that you have organized today. And I'm extremely happy and honored to be a part of this, this entire discussion. I think I would like to start by saying that as far as by sharing my experience, I think rather than saying much, I would like to share my experience. And is what I would like to, just 1 second, please. I think I'm getting a call. Just 1 second. Oh, okay. So basically, I just wanted to mention a little bit about the initial, the campaign that we did in Tamil Nadu, and that started from the Nilgiris district. And that was, I think it was way back, 20 years back, when we started this campaign in the district. And I think it is important to share some of the perspectives and experiences which can be used. Unfortunately, I could not hear much as to what the other speakers had to say. But the important thing that we did in Nilgiris, which still remains mostly disposable plastic free, is not to make it a campaign which is a government-led campaign, not to make it a campaign which is a regulatory campaign, and not to make a campaign which is something, it is only based on a kind of coming down heavily on the industry or on the people, and also following ideas which were not practical. So I think 3 lessons from that particular exercise. It was not a government-led campaign because it was a people's campaign. And how do we make anything which is to do with banning the microplastics or disposable plastics? We shall discuss about it. Second one, it was not a regulatory campaign because then it had a lot of awareness which was built, capacity building. And third, it was not a top-down approach because I think the, we will also discuss how it became a grassroots movement. So talking about the first important lesson, which is about why it was not a government-led campaign, was I think how we did it 20 years back when nobody was actually even talking about banning the disposable plastics. I think it was a transformational experience for me as the then. What we saw was quite devastating. Hello, are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, madam.
Yeah,
it's okay. Ma'am, if you can switch off your video, it might actually be better.
Yes, I think that's better. That's better. Yeah.
Yes.
Now it's okay?
Yes, ma'am, much better.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you very much. So, basically what the first thing was that we saw many wild animals choking on the disposable plastics. That was something which was, I think it was heartbreaking. And that brought many of us together at that point of time, where we were able to kind of sit together, discuss, and analyze as to how do we stop this kind of a devastation which was happening in our district. Secondly, Nilgiris being a hilly district, we were able to see how the drains and how the lakes, etc., were just getting choked with so much of a disposable plastic. I think that was another, thing which brought that kind of a momentum, that gave a momentum and a change to the whole, the entire exercise. We brought a group of citizens together, and we all had a brainstorm and used those pictures when the vets were performing surgeries on the animals which were choking on the disposable plastic. We brought those pictures in the public arena and made posters out of those. What exactly was happening, what exactly the kind of action, our action, which was devastating this entire wildlife. Those pictures and the posters that we actually put out in the entire district, that brought a major change at that point of time. That was something which turned the public opinion against the disposable plastic. So the lesson that is to be learned is that if you want to do it only as a government regulatory thing, you will not be able to change attitudes. So it's important to involve people's organizations, grassroots organizations, to make sure that the message reaches where it actually has to reach. Second lesson was that without industry, without the merchant body, etc., we were not able to move forward at all. So in the second stage of the campaign, we involved the panchayats, brought out resolutions, got our resolutions notified at the district level through the district gazettes, and made sure that even at the panchayat level, the functionaries were aware about it. So I think that was something which was important, which we did. But we also realized that just bringing a notification and just talking to people about it was also not helping. So in the next level of our implementation, we brought in a bit of a fine. And we made sure that the fine was not too strong. It was about 10 rupees for the first violation and things like that. And then we enhanced it a little bit. So a little bit of a fine. But then when you fine somebody, it goes into that person's mind and, the people around. And I think it really acts as a deterrent. So that was something that we did. So I think we need to, any campaign that we do in future, we need to definitely take into consideration the fact that one, it has to go into the minds of people, change of attitude, grassroots, something like that we need to work. And importantly, a bit of a penalty or a punitive action, not too harsh, but a bit of it has to be there, so that there is some discipline which is brought about. So I thought I will stop here, because these were some initial thoughts that came to my mind. And we plan to do it now in Tamil Nadu, with Ashish and his team and GIZ. We are just kind of working. We are going to start our, campaign. And I think these are some essential components. I like to stop here, and in case people think that there are some questions, then maybe we can answer those questions and move forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. No, I think brilliant example. I think the Nilgiris are still benefiting from the experience and experiment that you actually initiated. To have transformational change, I think we need sort of a combination of different instruments. And as you really pointed out, that of course people's participation, a participatory approach is actually very important. But it's also important to combine the participation, the nudge, with a little bit of some kind of instruments, punitive instruments as well. But keeping in mind the capacities of the participants in that entire system, a systems-based approach. So we're really sort of delighted that you've actually been able to share this experience with us. So, ma'am, I think we'll have questions towards the end. So if you manage to stay around, so we have a few speakers still lined up. So we'll have questions towards the end, ma'am.
Yes, Ashish, absolutely. I will definitely stay connected. But the only last point that I wanted to mention, which is very important, was that I think I forgot to mention that in the initial comments that I gave, was that there was a massive campaign with students, with the schools and eco clubs, etc. I think that really helped a lot, because students they were the messengers to the entire family. So I thought that that is the point which I forgot to mention, which I should definitely point it out here. So I'll stay on, and in case there are questions at the end of the session, I will be able to answer. Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Well, so I'm sure Mr. Gangwar is going to be happy to listen to the approach that Ms. Ahu shared, because a lot of what she's sharing is already being attempted as a part of this awareness campaign to actually have a much more participatory approach and also involve young people. So we actually have a student program, also a hackathon, which is going to run parallel to this awareness campaign as well. So my apologies, Nalini, I actually had to hold you back. But over to you now. Nalini is the CEO and the founder of, executive director and founder of Hasbirudallah. And she's actually has more than 3 decades of experience working on resource management and resource efficiency issues. And of course, she's going to be talking about the informal sector and on inclusive value chain, which is something that has been very close to the heart of sort of her work, but also our work of Indo-German bilateral cooperation work in India as well. And well, most recently in 2020, Nalini, right, you've been given the Number Bangalore Award for, well, a beloved Bangalorean. So I'm actually happy to sort of announce that as well to all our participants also. So Nalini, over to you. You have 15 minutes for your presentation, Nalini. Thanks very much. Okay, now I can't see her.
Sure. So I decided to introduce on informal value chain. Basically, and so it has a lot of people. We work with about 26,000 families, and I'm also a member of Alliance of Indian Waste Pickers, which represent about
Nalini, you might want to switch off your camera
over
because
1 lakh
really
waste pickers in the country. So what I'm talking about is my experience. Oh, okay. Just give me a second, please. I'm not able to just
continue.
Very bad?
No, now it's okay. Just continue.
Okay, is it better now?
Much better.
Okay,
much better.
So okay, so informal waste recycling sector has been is indispensable in any solid waste management when you talk about whether it is villages or the cities. So what we do is the waste pickers actually pick up, sort it, grade it through their labor and make it into a tradable commodity. And they create the recycling ore for the recycling industry. So traditionally they have the formal system, wherever there is the gap is there, they have filled up these gaps for the local bodies. And with, of course, the introduction of ranking system through Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the efficiency of the cities and the panchayat have increased with the door-to-door collection. So it is important to include waste pickers and others in the waste recycling industry into our collection system of waste, especially inorganic waste. So what we generally talk about waste pickers are they are disorganized, bad working condition, non-hygienic, challenge for controlling pollution, they are not transparent. These are the things that we keep hearing. But what we don't really hear what we really don't hear is that they're actually it's a robust market-based industry. They're highly knowledgeable about the material and recyclability of materials, and they're skilled in sorting and grading, manage their own capital, and trading plastic informal sector is reasonably a big trade. And one more fact is that their work is negative carbon footprints. So there is already a connection between formal and informal sector. In fact, with our 2 times pandemic, we really realized how formal system is dependent on informal, not the other way around. So it's very important to bring them on board. So we look at the formal collection system. It is going to informal sector partly and mostly going to landfill or incineration. Look at informal waste system. You have the waste pickers and small traders next to sell your newspaper to. There are small aggregators, large aggregators, and there are informal processing. This is the system that is predominantly present in most of the cities, but the scenario is changing now. And where we see a lot of connection between formal and informal setup. And so we see that informal setup, informal trade is also contributing to the formal setup, where unsegregated from the city might be to landfill, or some part of the high value waste is collected and it goes back to the informal sector. So what we are looking at is how do we make this whole green economy? It is already a circular economy, but make it more professionalized, less hazardous, and better working conditions. This is what we are looking. If we really do that, actually they will be our warriors of plastic collection. So this is what we really would like to move forward to. So what is lacking today to do that? So we are really looking at the city should recognize and notify the natural market of informal waste, markets. There are a lot of markets informally started and it becomes an area. And these natural markets, some investment in the infrastructure by the state or by the city is very important. You have a market for bananas, you have market for flowers, you have market for vegetables. We should start looking at how do we have these natural markets move into a little more regularized and better infrastructure markets. And identify and support the informal recycling hub. There are a lot of recycling hubs. Even in Bangalore, we have 2 large recycling hubs, and all the time. I really like the previous man was talking about how regulators playing its role as a regulator in the beginning is not enough. We have to take them along and change the system of how they're working today to a better system. And we also feel that there should be a reservation of land for recycling in the industrial area. In 2016 rules, it says you have to have for the industrial area itself for your own recycling, but we need to extend that. It says 5% for the recycling of the material within the recycling industry. So, so how do we professionalize this whole working force? So we believe in developing more and more entrepreneurs, and where we create entrepreneurship, we create their aspiration, we create better kind of a living condition than just 9 to 5 jobs with the social security. So what we are looking at it, there are a lot of people who need regularized jobs, and we should provide it. What we really believed, and we have shown in our work, that creating entrepreneurship is a better way of bringing and kind of working with the system. Access to financing is very important. We have worked with NSKTC, and for the first time in the country, waste pickers were given finances, not just for working capital. You never get, even from the banks, you don't get working capital. But some of our waste pickers have received ODs, overdraft facilities, which is unheard of in the sector, and such innovative way of financing is something that we really have to look forward to. And also, a lot of special waste that comes, and that is a great space for moving the special waste, creating it. For example, in Bangalore, we have a lot of coconut shells. Coconut shells was going to the landfill. So we created a form where the collection happened in a decentralized way, and more aggregators started coming in. At the end, the IT department came and said you have to pay value-added tax. So we have to find out many other things, like for example, thermocol. Thermocol was not processed before. In a place like Mangalore where we work, where a lot of fisheries are there. The thermocol processing is also very important, and you can really do it. We have done all this. I will in a minute I will share it. What has worked for us is partnership with the government, especially local government, has really helped us in creating decentralized spaces for integration of waste, because partnership with citizens was very key. But finally, they are the consumers of the waste management services of the city. So they need to be partner with it. Partnership with UN agency, and Vilma was just talking about how SDGs can be totally connected with social, in waste management. Then partnership with different companies has kind of helped, and also a lot of funders who have funded us for a new innovative way of working with waste pickers. And great partnership with the waste pickers themselves is very, very key. So when you really look at our work in Karnataka itself, and 2 cities in Andhra Pradesh, we have created a little over 80 entrepreneurs. And some of them have registered themselves as MSME now. And many of them have been paying, income tax returns have been filed. So when we are talking about entrepreneurship, really making them entrepreneurs, not just giving them some small facility to manage it. Many places we say, let's form an SHG. SHG doesn't comply with any of the labor laws. So it is very important when we are promoting any one kind of integration, we have to really look what that brings value to the workers. Identification, ID cards are very important, but it should not stop there. So just to give an example, just in Bengaluru, where we manage about 33 centers, that is 33 wards in the city in the last 1 year, it is only 16% of the city. And we have been, the incoming waste, that is both organic, inorganic, inorganic waste of all kinds, has been little over 11,000 tons. And the total plastic itself is 266 tons. And non-recyclable, it is shocking the amount of non-recyclable we collect. Almost 40% of the waste that comes in is non-recyclable. So I also want to really talk about 2 important things. Just to mention, in Bangalore, we actually did a study where it showed that more than 3,500 metric tons per day plastic is traded in Bangalore. So you can imagine how much more will be there. The city government manages all waste together, little over 5,000 tons, but just plastic trading in Bangalore alone is 3,500 metric tons per day. And also, when we Karnataka introduced the 2016 law, where in 2016 they said single-use plastic has to be stopped. We had a town hall with citizens, academicians, we had waste pickers, scrap dealer. They all came together to talk about, have a dialogue. And the waste picker said, if of course we get money from this single-use carry bags, but if it is harmful to the public health, we uphold the public health and we don't need this single-use plastic. And this is a response a person who is dependent on waste is talking about. So there is an important lesson to learn from here, saying that single-use plastic is not required. In our dry waste collection center, before 2016, we used to get anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 tons of just carry bags per month. And today we get anywhere between 40 and 50 kilos per month. So this also shows, of course, single-use plastic has increased after the pandemic for sure, but carry bags have not come back as much as it was used before 2016. So I believe the single-use plastic can be stopped, and we have shown at scale how it is stopped, and also people engaged in livelihood with plastic are also saying, I don't want this multi-layered plastic chips, which is material. We don't need carry bags, and it is really to partner with waste pickers and other informal sector to make sure the campaign that we have launched on will be strong partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nalini, for sharing your sort of journey and also the experiences of your organization. I think the informal sector will play a significant role in pretty much all of India in actually dealing with the challenges of single-use plastics as well. And I think we have a resource in the informal sector, and we have to really leverage the strengths of informality in our specific environment. But of course, at the same time, respecting certain legal and administrative boundaries that we are confronting while working with informality as well. So thanks very much, Nalini, for your inputs. Now I'd like to turn to Sanjeev Goyal. He's actually leading the Wellbeing Out of Waste initiative of ITC. So we've heard Nalini, who's working with informal waste pickers, and now sort of a representative of ITC, who's been working on a massive program. Last week, I heard someone say that well-being out of waste is everywhere, which is fantastic to hear. So over to you, Mr. Goyal, for your presentation. I see you have 25 slides, but unfortunately, you have only 15 minutes. So please stick to that time. Thank you so much. Mr. Goyal, you're still muted. Well, am I the only one not being able to hear Mr. Goyal? Can someone help me?
Just give me a minute. I'm just, are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all the esteemed speakers and attendees of this program. It is indeed a privilege for me to speak on the subject on sustainable waste management, the well-being out of waste. The subject has gained too much of importance in the last few days, and pandemic has shown it that without proper waste management, we are going to face similar situations in coming future also. So it is imperative on us to give a lot of importance to this area of sustainable waste management. I will be sharing my experience on the ITC's Wellbeing Out of Waste program. Before I started, I would like to thank our NGO partners, all the field staff on the ground who relentlessly work towards the single objective of creating awareness on the importance of source segregation, and the various other stakeholders like the municipalities, the urban local bodies, the various schools, colleges, the corporates, the Safai Karamcharis, who are the informal sector but play a very important role in the sector, and the most important of them all, the citizens of the cities where we operate this model. So welcome to an enticing and important session on sustainable waste management, the ITC WOW way. So all of us are aware that there are a lot of challenges in the waste management sector. I will not go into detail, but the most important what we find is the collection and segregation failure. Most of the times the waste management can be made very simple, as Veena was presenting. Like, we have been a very, very frugal economy. India as such has been a poor country till very recently, and now we are prospering into an economy where we are moving towards the use and throw model, which is not the right thing for us because India does not have that much of infrastructure. India does not have that much of land to take all this waste. So it is imperative on all of us that we focus on the most important aspect of the segregation of waste. Once the waste is segregated at the household level, most of the problems related to the waste management can get solved. That has been the experience of WOW, which I will share you in the following slides. What has been the ITC approach for this waste management? So ITC runs this WOW program in most of the urban areas, which are marked in yellow, and Mission Sunhera Kal, which is a program which works in the rural districts of India. We work with the various stakeholders. We also are making efforts to reduce the packaging, the use of packaging material by reducing the and bringing alternative materials and using recycled content in the non-food packaging. We also are doing the MLP collection as part of the EPR, and the volume we intend to complete this quantity of 2022, the quantity which we send into the packaging, the entire thing we want to collect it within this financial year. Now, coming to the specific WOW, well-being out of waste. Many of you would be aware that WOW has been in existence for almost like 15 years. What started as an initiative for the paper division to resource the fiber, which was getting imported from all parts of the world, it was felt like, why, when we have so much of recycling and the resources available, why can't we get the paper within the country? So that is how the program started as Wealth Out of Waste in 2007. But then as we saw the reach, we converted into a program which will be of a larger scale and was termed as Well-being Out of Waste. And the new name, Christian, in 2013, has been in operation for almost like 8 years now. The major initiative under this is to promote the awareness about the source segregation. As I mentioned, that source segregation is one of the most important and critical part for any waste management practice. We are also trying to establish systems to ensure that these become sustainable. As I explained, these things cannot happen without the active participation of the various urban local bodies and the panchayats and the municipalities. We have to make an effort for the behavioral change, as was also mentioned by Mr. Atul Bagai, that behavioral change is one of the most important parameters which is needed to be worked upon. Otherwise, if we see it as very simple, like why do we need to mix the dry and wet waste? Because if the dry and wet waste are separate, half the problem is solved at that household level itself. Then once this dry waste is reaching to the centers, the Safai Karamcharis or the Swachh Doots, they segregate into various categories, and which then goes to the, I will be covering in the forthcoming slide, how it reaches to the aggregators, and then from there it goes to the recyclers. What does this benefit us? It gives us an improved environment, it helps to reduce the cost and enhanced income for the Safai Karamcharis and the Swachh Doots. So, what is the most first and foremost important step is the source segregation at the household level. Then once the source, if the material of the waste is segregated, the door-to-door collection by the urban local bodies becomes that much more easier. And then when it goes to the market, it can further get segregated into various categories as plastic, paper, metal, glass. Most of the value-added products gets sold by these recycling centers. But then the most important one of that, which is the area of focus and which is causing a lot of this pollution to the oceans, is the single-use plastic and the multi-layer plastic, which does not have usage. As of now, maximum the quantity, almost like 90-95% of the quantity is going to the end user recycle for the cement kiln as co-processing or waste to energy. We are working to convert into some useful products. Coming to the WOW, from which I mentioned, it started in 2007. We have covered almost like 15 million citizens, 5.4 million school children, 2,000 corporates. We have converted almost like 140 social entrepreneurs in the last 15 years, and we operate in 1,067 wards. As someone had, Supriya ma'am had mentioned, that school children are the ones whom we should be going to. We believe in the philosophy of catch them young. So as we are going to teach the children, they become our ambassadors in the various societies, colonies. And once the children decide to do something and take it on them, that waste management is bad for them, they will ensure that their parents or their other people in the society follow that. So we are following an integrated approach of reaching out to the citizens, school children, corporates, and as many entrepreneurs as possible. So these are some of the rewards or awards which ITC WOW program has received over the last few years. How do we start this? We do a profiling when we go to our volunteers, when they go to the household, they do the profiling of the household, like how much do they know about waste management? Do they segregate the plastic? Do they think that waste management is important? So this gives us the database and helps us to monitor in the next level of awareness campaign, like which are the houses which are implementing it in full and which are not implementing. So this is the most and foremost important starting point, and this becomes a Bible for all our volunteers. And based on this, as some of the people have mentioned, we are trying to digitize it and bring the data analytics into it so that this manual system can get converted into a digital form. This is how these are some of the snapshots, like the volunteers go to the household, they explain to them the importance of source segregation. And then whichever house we have covered, we put a sticker on that house to indicate that that house has been covered and those people have agreed to do the source segregation at source. The transformation of the behavior with continuous follow-up takes place. And these are the people like which shows that they are segregating the waste and coming to deliver it to the municipal vehicles which come to pick up this waste. In Bangalore specifically, it has become a very good practice. Though pandemic has pushed us back on that, but still again we are making efforts that the dry recyclable waste is kept separately and the wet waste goes for composting, which gives revenue to the resident welfare associations or the societies which implement the composting. This you can see is the picture before and after a propagation. Like you can see the wet waste once it is separated and the dry waste is going to the recycling centers, the revenue automatically becomes amenable to the system. These are the dry recycling centers which receive the waste once these leave from our houses. You can see the Safai Karamcharis and the people operating on these centers where they segregate into various categories of plastic, paper, high value plastic, etc. Unique program about ITC is that these programs are run by the self-help group, and one of the centers like Siddipet, it has become a model where the operator Kavita, she has put on record that her life has changed after the implementation of this WOW program in her center. Though she was uneducated or illiterate, but then ITC has trained them, and now she employs almost like 12 people who do the segregation and convert these recyclables into various categories and do for forward integration, which is known as the hub. This is how the central hub or the aggregating point looks like. Here, we get a lot of support from the urban local bodies in terms of the physical infrastructure, but then the investment is done by ITC WOW through its NGO partners by providing the equipments like the baling presses and the conveyor belts, which help in the sorting. Because once the sorting is proper, like the previous speaker was mentioning that they segregate into 8 to 10 varieties or something like that. It is very much essential that unless we have the infrastructure for proper segregation, it would not be possible to bring it into various categories and realize the actual waste value out of that. So MLP, as everyone has been talking about the single-use plastic, we have been making efforts with the support of our Life Sciences and Technology Center for conversion of these MLPs into by shredding it and then recycling it and making into a final product. So we are very sure that at least 5 to 7% of the conversion of MLP, instead of going to the cement companies for co-processing or waste to energy, will be converted into useful products, which will be a real case of circular economy and sustainability. These are some of the other programs like where we engage with the societies and we go and tell the people the importance of source segregation, and if the waste is segregated, source, the importance of that, and then we get a lot of support. We run this program at the schools where we give to the students, we ask the students to bring the waste from their houses, and we give the stationary products of ITC or the hygiene products, which becomes an important tool for connecting with them. We follow the same procedure also at the resident welfare associations, whichever show interest for implementing the WOW program. We also help the urban local bodies in creating awareness, and these are some of the snapshots on when the Swachh Sarvekshan activities were in full swing. Our teams have volunteered and worked together with the urban local body at Mysore, conducted a lot of road plays, jams to create an awareness to the society in large. When the clarion call for Swachhata Hi Seva was given by our Honorable Prime Minister, ITC WOW and its volunteers and its total team has taken upon itself to create this awareness in a huge and resounding manner. As you would be seeing that rallies were held across the cities, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and a lot of material which was collected, the plastic was sent to the cement companies for co-processing. These are some of the snapshots where the ministers and the municipal commissioners have come to see the exhibitions put up by the small children, and which has given them a lot of motivation to do and engage in the activity of waste management. Another new initiative on single-use plastic, which we have started over the last few months or days, we should call, is Panni Se Kanni. I think we have coined this, and we feel that in Hindi it means like we should eliminate that. So this should become a slogan for everyone, and we need the support of the various stakeholders in eliminating the single-use plastic, which has really overgrown in the last few months or something because of the pandemic. So Panni Se Kanni should be the slogan, which I think we should try and propagate across the country, or maybe convert into regional languages based on in that region, so that it has a immediate connect to the people. So we have been conducting, along with our WOW volunteers, the drives along with the various municipal commissioners, assistant commissioners in Delhi. And these are some of the fields where the Okhla Mandi, we have gone and distributed the cloth bags, and we are trying to promote the jute bags for the society. Upcycled bags from recycled cloth or used cloth is being distributed. And there is a very positive response from the various stakeholders, the mandis and the fruit vendors, but it's still a huge challenge, and it would be needed support of all the people if we have to really eliminate the single-use plastic. We also conduct the workshops on segregation of waste and home composting, as we mentioned, that in case the home composting is done or the community composting is done, almost like 70 to 80% of the waste gets resolved at the society level. So it is essential that all of us take upon us to do the home composting or community composting. So just I have to finish it within the time as indicated by Ashish. How do we see the way ahead? Many of the speakers before me have also mentioned that we have to build stronger market linkage for revenue generation through upcycling. MLP, if it is going for co-processing, it is the end of life, but if it can get converted into something useful, it can continue to be in the economy. Another item which we feel that plastic is one of the menace, but then footwear and cloths are another which are a huge quantum which come to the waste centers. So we have to look at alternatives for or upcycling of the footwear waste, which will help us in eliminating the waste in a total way in India. We also want to reach the larger segments of population through digital medium, because as the young population, you would know, is more tech friendly or digital friendly. And those are the people which we are trying to market and utilize their services to spread the message of the waste segregation at source. We also want to bring in technology in the waste management through the QR code and RFID base, so that the monitoring becomes that much more easier for the urban local bodies, and they know like how to penalize or how to put this one. We have to also see like these have to become successful. These would need the support of the residents as well as the various urban local bodies. Digitization, as everyone has been speaking, the startup ecosystem and waste management has really taken a big leap. And a lot of startups like Banyan Nation, which converts the HDP into useful products, and they are helping the various FMCG companies on the usage of HDP into recycled packaging. Similarly, there are many startups like Kabadiwala who are trying to aggregate the informal sector. So we want to forge relationships with all these ecosystems and go a long way in cleaning and greening the India. To end it, I would only say, let's leave this environment in a livable condition. Thank you. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Goyal, for your very comprehensive presentation and this entire value chain approach that ITC is taking, and also trying to integrate different actors within the value chain, and also looking at materials like carefully,
Sir, she was logged in from two devices since there is some technical glitch in the connection. She's back again.
She's back.
Nirmala ma'am, I would request that I will play.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Ma'am, since your internet connection is not stable, I would prefer that I will play your presentation and video from here so that it won't bother your internet connection.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. Okay. So thank you, Ashish, UNEP, Ministry of Forests, GIS and FICCI for giving us this opportunity, especially Mr. Dilip Mene for giving us this opportunity to share our experiences in promoting to single-use plastics and also promoting a circular economy. Now, before we are a girls' college in Kerala, trying to promote alternatives to plastic and also started a social entrepreneurship unit for promoting this. So I think I will start playing the video. Can you play it? One of you from there, you can start playing the video. Should I play?
Yes, ma'am. I'll play from here.
I think I'll share the video. Let me see. No, I'll see if I play.
Ma'am, that will hamper your internet connection. Since it's
okay,
already
so better if you play the video and then I can just, yeah.
Yeah, you can, ma'am, add your remarks and can instruct me when to play and pause.
Yeah, I think I'm starting the playing now. One sec.
St. Teresa's College, Ernakulam, a
Can you see?
college situated in central has for the past 6 years been persistently working to address
Can you see?
pollution.
Women's College, situated in central Kerala, has for the past 6 years been persistently working to address plastic pollution through various activities. STEP, Society of Terraces for Environment Protection, a charitable society formed on campus, strives to replace plastic or resin products with a potpourri of trendy, eco-friendly cloth alternatives popularized among students and communities through awareness sessions, exhibitions, and sales. A training center in campus skills Kudumbashree or women's self-help groups across Kerala on manufacturing such products, and video tutorials illustrating stitching process are uploaded on government sites for public access. Through Chapter project, they upcycle tailoring excess to manufacture over 10,000 eco-friendly pencil pouches. The college has an official Terrasian Green Protocol which replaces single-use plastics on campus with reusable products, and students are given an orientation on the Green Convention to be followed. The Green Protocol was popularized among 10,000 households in Cheranellur Panchayat, and plastic use minimized in festivals at Malayatur Hill, Cochin Carnival, etc. through deposit schemes. A plastic carry bag reduction campaign, PK3, was organized in 27 schools in Ernakulam district in the year 2019-2020. Another initiative was the Save Our Future campaign of 2020, which sensitized the public on the danger of single-use plastics. Matadina Nolira Threads of Change campaign was launched in 2021 to promote sustainable fashion and organized hand-me-down and mix-and-match challenges to promote upcycling and reshaping of old worn-out clothes into trendy dresses and useful products. Hundreds of women were sensitized and encouraged to take up upcycling in homesteads. The Soft Toy Product Initiative, mentored by the college, sanitizes, shreds, and converts tailoring excess into educational toys to be supplied to the government-run creches in the state. This project is currently under implementation in Cochin City as well as in ecologically sensitive Western Ghats using Green Innovation Fund of UNDP, the Kerala Startup Mission and the Haritha Kerala Mission, so as to upcycle the entire tailoring excess generated in these areas. Such initiatives on reducing plastic and resin wastes and upcycling textile wastes have won various state awards and also national recognition from the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, through his Mann Ki Baat address to the nation on March 28, 2021.
केरल के कोच्चि के सेंट टेरेसा कॉलेज का है। इस कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट्स रीयूजेबल टॉयज बना रहे हैं।
Ma'am, should I display your presentation also?
That will be good. Okay, so that I can you show the presentation? Then I can do the voiceover from here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I've just shared. Just give me a moment.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'll be moving over very, very quickly. Okay. So I will just share our experiences and behaviors, what the learnings that we had in our major milestones. Next. Just go to the third one. Next one. Okay. So I'll start with the story behind starting, and no, the previous one, please. I'll start with the story behind STEP. The previous slide, please. Yeah. The story behind starting a social entrepreneurship unit was a waste audit we did in 4 sample villages in Kerala, which revealed, next slide, phenomenal increase in plastics, but a large segment of which was carry bags, which were unscientifically disposed of. Textile waste was another issue. So obviously the solution was a 3 R's. So next, please. We started with design of alternatives. The first thing we popularized was a t-shirt bag, a zero-cost alternative to carry bags, which we popularized among our children. Then we realized that, young people do need trendy, modern things. Next slide. And that set the base for our social entrepreneurship unit STEP. which focuses on design, manufacture of trendy compact alternatives to carry bags. This was in 2015 we started. And one of our products is the ball bag. You see the outer covering of which is tailoring waist. So we are also upcycling tailoring waist. Next. Another product is the, next slide please. Another product is the strawberry bag, another compact alternative. And then we realized we have gender in bags and we need to, next slide, a gender in bags, and we need to design, next slide please. Next, we need gender neutral bags which look like zip bags or others. And then the next question was, how do we motivate children to become brand ambassadors of an anti-plastic carry bag movement? So charity begins at home. To use have, compact ball bags or strawberry bags, alternate to carry bags attached to their college bags. So they are brand ambassadors of an anti-plastic carry bag movement. Next slide, please. Next slide. Our green protocol was implemented in the campus. No, previous slide. Previous slide, please. Our green protocol was implemented to include single-use plastics like glasses, plates, water bottles, etc. Previous slide, please. And we also had pictorial nudges which were all around the campus. And now this simplified poster, pardon?
No, ma'am, please
This
go ahead,
simplified poster has become the official poster of Sujitha Mission Government of Kerala. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Ma'am, there is a lag in your connection. You might want to switch.
Malayatu festival gives an example how you can. Okay, I'll switch off the video. Yes. Now is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now
there's a
is
lag
it
of
okay?
2-3 seconds. Yes, ma'am. There is a lag of 2-3 seconds.
Okay.
So it reflects, 2-3 seconds later
Malayatu
when you.
Green Festival shows an example. Okay. Okay, I will go a bit slow then. The Malayatu Youth Festival shows how youth can work with local governments to prevent plastic littering in ecologically sensitive areas during mass gatherings. Pilgrims, the students paste stickers onto plastic items of the pilgrims, collect a deposit, and refund the same when the pilgrims come back and show that they have not littered the plastic in the ecologically sensitive forest areas. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Shall I start the presentation from here? Hello.
There's a.
No, ma'am, I don't think we have the time now. So,
hello.
Ma'am, we can hear you. I think we should just try and summarize the presentation.
In 2018, we started the training center where we train women self-help groups across Kerala. And what we promote is, okay, can you hear me now? Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
please
I'll
continue.
summarize. I won't go into the detail thus. But what I would like to highlight is that what to summarize, what I would like to highlight two things. One is that what Supriya ma'am said, that we really need to take on board all school children, educational institutions, school children as participants. Speaker, as every speaker says, Adi Wali can make a difference. Get on board. And from our experience, we realize, awareness is sufficient. What I needed periodic nudges to ensure that awareness gets translated to action. And that is where I think our experience, because here we are being the best judges, and we need judges to ensure that the awareness get into act. Many times we have people, ridiculing us on the small, what a small thing, why do you want to address plastics? And we realize only carry bags. We now recently in the tight challenge and realized that when a student in a plastic diary, we realized that a single ML or a bigger carry bags, MLPs are big. So we really need to get to actors on, and our plan of action is to converge or in Cochin City to bring them of the corporation and
All right, I think the connection's actually not very good, so it's a pity. But I think we've got the gist of the message from Dr. Padmanabhan, that well, the youth, the young people are at the center of these initiatives. And of course, we need to nudge using appropriate instruments to sort of have behavior change at the heart of any transformative process. So I'd now hand over to Subi Tupar from UN Environment to moderate the Q&A session. So Subi, please, 10 minutes for Q&A. I hope you have an answer.
Sure. Thank you, Ashish. So I know we're running a little over time. And so we have roughly around 6-7 questions. And so I'll just go through, these questions have come from specific people and are addressed to specific panel members. The first question is from Mr. Anup Kumar Srivastava, retired IAS officer, former secretary to the Government of India, Department of Border Management in the Ministry of Home Affairs, and secretary in the Ministry of Tribal Affairs as well. His question is to Mr. Naresh Pal Gangwarji. And his question is, Kerala government and some other state governments have banned all kinds of plastic carry bags irrespective of their thickness. Why can't Government of India do it to give it all India applicability? Plastic carry bags are non-essential and biggest problem to the environment. People should develop the habit of carrying their own reusable bags, for example, cotton, jute, and khadi, when they go for shopping. Do we have Mr. Gangwarji on the call? Is he available? Naresh sir. I think
maybe Amit
perhaps
sir can help connecting with Naresh sir's office. Amit sir, if you can help.
I think by the time Amit sir is connecting to Naresh sir's office, I could just go through the next question in the meantime. The next question is from Miss Jaya, and it's directed towards Dr. Pradeep Kumar. And her question is, in this pandemic situation, we are using more face masks and other PPE kits. The common people are taking parcels from hotels and are throwing away the single-use food parcel boxes, used masks, etc., on the sides of the roads and water bodies. How does the government, how can the government manage this situation better? Do we have Dr. Pradeep Kumarji on this call?
No, Shubhi, he's not on the call. So I think we direct the question to either Sanjeev Ji or Sanjeev Goyal from ITC. He might have an opinion on this. Mr. Goyal, can you answer the question?
Sanjeev sir, would you like to answer the question?
I can share what we are doing in Bangalore. I could share what we are doing in Bangalore. Yeah. So what is especially the masks that has been used and thrown away by the citizens, we are specifically asking them because Bangalore has a three-way collection. So the third is the sanitary waste collection. So our waste pickers who are running the center, they themselves are making films and sending it to the RWAs and saying that this need to be given in the sanitary waste, and we have seen a huge change. It doesn't mean it's not coming, but it's definitely at least 90% of it is not coming to the center. The second thing is also asking people to wash and throw their plastic containers that comes from the hotel. And that has also been successful for about 10 to 15%. But PP is still a problem because once it comes to sanitary collected separately, the local government is supposed to send it to the incineration. That is not happening. But collection is happening separately.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. There is another question that is perhaps directed towards you. So it is this question from Miss Harleen Kaur, and she'd like to know that what would be your recommendations for ULBs for formalizing informal waste collectors apart from providing ID cards? What are the other measures that can be taken?
So yeah, ID card is just the beginning. What Bangalore has done is in their bylaws they have said that all the dry waste, that is inorganic waste, will be collected and managed by the waste picker or SHG group. To that extent, each ward has a dry waste collection centers where all the waste, inorganic waste, come there. So we are able to even collect a lot of MLP, which otherwise goes into landfill and other places. So, so that is one, training them and getting them into your own solid waste management system. And the second is training them to manage the organic waste. These are the two things, and also training them to manage zero waste weddings or marathons and other places. So where there's an NGO which is doing, but it may not be possible for all NGOs to be there everywhere, ULB is the best thing to do. Panchkula, we have seen that their commissioners sent waste pickers to Bangalore to learn and go back and do it. So no NGO can do or replace the local ULBs. So they have to take this responsibility and do it. So it is possible to do, and we'll be happy to share the bylaws, and the state government policy very clearly outlines how to integrate waste pickers.
Sure. Thank you so much, ma'am. The next question is towards Veena Balakrishnan ji. And the question is, what are the challenges you have faced while starting your venture? And what are the current market outreach strategies that you undertake?
Challenges. I would say the first thing is to really have the confidence that yes, you can do it too. And most often people ask, "Oh, young woman, how do you do it? How do you know where to go approach?" I think this is a very common challenge that everybody comes to me with. But I really think if you have the right intention and if you have the intention to power through, then you really get the help that you want. And I really believe that the sustainability community, once you get into it, like as an entrepreneur, the kind of people I've met, the kind of connections I've made, they're extremely supportive. So, for example, if somebody is really looking to start their own sustainable venture, like plastic-free alternatives is something that they're looking to do work on, then they can reach out to me or anybody else who they know who is working on this, and we'll definitely be able to support. So challenge-wise, yes, of course. The whole support part of it, the network, money, of course, that plays a fundamental part. But there are a lot of schemes that I've come across on the way. So I really don't think any of these are big challenges at all, to be honest. Probably why I'm not really addressing them in a larger distinct too. The second point of how we're undertaking it at the moment. So what I do currently, predominantly right now, is work with businesses. So we do B2B solutions for corporates and, to make their gifting sustainable, because that goes in a large quantity, right? So sometimes a big organization wants to welcome their employees and they want to, with a, let's say, a coffee mug or something, we make sure that instead of a coffee mug, we try to make a sustainable alternative for them. So these are some innovations that we're creating, and there's endless possibilities. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much. Quickly moving on, the next question is directed towards Ms. Wilma. And the question is, ma'am, that like in agriculture, environment infra projects, waste management group work is not serious about their work, and often it's mixed with the garbage. What should people do in that case?
Ma'am,
Please
please
unmute,
unmute
madam.
yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah. So, segregation of waste is such a basic requirement for waste management. And now when we, talk about human beings being intelligent, I really don't see this as a challenge. The fact is that we have to follow up segregation with collection of segregated waste. And that collected segregated waste must go to the right destination with complete traceability of where it's going, how it's going, the data around it. And if we can do that, if government, ULBs, etc., can, focus first on segregation, but then on the end destination and the collection, you will see people participate. So it cannot just be the communication and messaging cannot only be on segregation. It has to be on collection and end destinations. And there is a price to actually build value. So the value will come for the environment in the end, but there's also the price points of collection, which will be appropriate also because, currently when you collect mixed waste, it's perhaps cheaper than when you collect segregated waste and put it into end destinations. So there is that user fee that is required where, ULBs, etc., are able to pay SHGs, pay the waste pickers appropriately, because only then will, that kind of baton be passed right up to the end destination. Currently, when you see ULBs putting monies only into infrastructure very often, which is not appropriate. Have the right infrastructure and make sure there is an operational cost. The revenues from waste cannot meet the operational costs of a dry waste collection center. We know that very well. And yet we are not moving into what we know into the right solution. Yeah, so it is important. Now the MSW rules do talk about service fees and user fees. That needs to be implemented so that waste pickers, anybody working with waste, gets into the proper collection system and is responsible for the proper collection system and is paid appropriately so that we will enable the system right up to the end destination.
Thank you, ma'am, for that answer. It was very insightful. The next question is towards Mr. Sanjeev Goel. And there are actually two questions for him. Sir, Shall I read out both to you, or should I read one at a time?
One at a time would be better.
Okay. So the first question is, education is indeed the most important tool towards behavior change, but again, it is most important how that education is delivered. Most programs look at a stereotypical methods which enhance knowledge but not necessarily turn into action. Your suggestions on this?
See, we have seen this program over the last 15 years, and as Vilma ma'am was also suggesting, is that segregation is not so much of a rocket science. All of us are humans, all of us have brains. Only thing it's the practice which needs to be implemented. So we have been following some very innovative routes like the Nukkad Natak, or on the like as mentioned, the school programs where we go and tell the school children. So they become our ambassadors. So as per me, yes, adoption is difficult. That's what the most important aspect in this is behavioral change. So we are working continuously on this behavioral change. It takes time, but we have seen it in some of the municipalities like Siddipet, like where we work very extensively. We found that the 85% segregation level has been achieved. And there, because so much of dry recyclable waste is coming, we are putting up infrastructure like in terms of a baling press and a conveyor belt, which will help in sorting better. So unless the proper infrastructure, once the dry waste keeps coming to you, and if you're not able to convert it into revenue, it will not work. I will also like to give an industry perspective here, like since I had the procurement experience of almost like 28 years. Actually, this is the best time for the waste management. The prices of commodities have gone up so much. The waste paper prices, like some of the grades, many of the attendees or the panelists may be knowing, have moved up by almost like 2.5%, 2.5 times, like which used to be paper, the writing printing paper, which used to be around about 16, 17 rupees is now 27 rupees. The mixed paper, which used to be 9, 10 rupees is now about 18 rupees. So that provides the impetus because the availability of waste paper is becoming limited. Similar is the case with plastic. The various grades of plastic, the prices have moved up about 30 to 40%. So this is the right time for many of the waste management agencies or the centers which are operating to become profitable. And we are hopeful that if these type of trend continue and with support from the urban local bodies in terms of the infrastructure in the prominent locations, we are on it as per me.
Sure. So just very briefly in a minute, since we are really running out of time, if you could answer the last question, which is what are the product streams wherein ITC is introducing alternative packaging or reducing packaging? And what kind of timelines is the company working on to introduce these alternatives to plastics in its packaging?
See, many of the products are there. Recently, we have launched the Savlon with the Pitchco, which has a high content of recycled content of plastic in that. We are also working with many of the startups and agencies to have a refillable model so that the plastic which gets used to get the liquid soap or the air conditioners, etc., will get converted into the form of a refillable. So those are some of the projects we are working, and we are hopeful by 2025 we want to have at least 50% recycled content in our packaging.
Thank you so much, sir. I think there are many things to learn, and we could continue to just go on for the rest of the day. But without further ado, Ashish, back to you.
Thanks, Shubhi. And I think, yes, there are lots of questions, I'm sure, which are still unanswered. So please do share them with us and we will try and answer them. I've been asked to give closing remarks, and my God, it's been a fascinating sort of conversation that we've actually heard from, well, sort of the panelists who've spoken about key ideas for managing this challenge. And I'd like to summarize them in 4 sort of broad bullet points. Of course, the discussion was really rich, so I'm sure by sort of bringing the entire discussion into 4 points, I'm actually missing out on some details. But my first point is about how the awareness and the sort of dealing with single-use plastics is as personal as it can get. Every individual, all of us who are in this call, as professionals, but also as individuals who are dealing with sort of a wide array of plastics in our lives, it would be really important and imperative to actually start thinking about solutions at home, in our daily lives, in our sort of everyday interaction with our families, our friends, but also in our own conscious decisions on every buying decision that we make, every consumption decision that we make. How can we actually start thinking about plastics and trying to minimize the use of single-use plastics and maybe reduce the packaging of plastics as much as we can. So it's very personal. But saying that it's personal doesn't mean that there isn't a systemic element to it. And I think a lot of what people have said, that there is a grand systemic design which needs to be overhauled when you actually start thinking about single-use plastics. So we have to think about, of course, alternatives to single-use plastics. We have to start thinking about extended producer responsibility, how to get different actors in the value chain, how to actually start thinking about mainstreaming the critical actors who could potentially be marginalized, like the informal sector, from the plastic value chain. So the second bit is about systemic change, looking at both extended producer responsibility as well as inclusive value chains. And I think the final point is my final point, which is actually inspired by sort of what Ms. Padmanabhan said, Ms. Sahu said, Supriya Sahu said, is about making a people's movement to actually talk about transformative change. If you really want to make a people's movement out of it, people's movement will not emerge just by sort of a diktat, by a law, by a rule. I think people's movement would emerge if there are multiple stakeholders who actually come together. And I think this single-use plastic initiative awareness program is one such example. All of you who've been panelists are part of this awareness campaign. We've actually got international organizations, a business association, of course, the government of India coming together to actually organize such a people's movement. So if we can actually move that, give some momentum to such a people's movement, that could potentially prove transformational. And I think in all our endeavors at the national and the state level, if we can create more examples, like in the Nilgiri, like in St. Teresa's College, like in sort of what Vilma and Sanjeev and Nalini are trying to do at the local level, I think we would be none the wiser and none the richer in our own experiences and expertise as well. So with this, I'd like to thank all of you and well, hand over to Mr. Nayak for the official vote of thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chaturvedi. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, good afternoon. We at FICCI are thankful and honored to have this opportunity to work together with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, GIZ and UNEP in this critically important initiative that will be vital for our environment and society. I extend my sincere thanks to Sri Naresh Pal Gangwar ji, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, for their utmost support and guidance for this campaign. FICCI, being the oldest industry chamber of the country, is actively engaged with the industry on a wide range of agendas on plastic waste management. The previous two events about this campaign, like lunch ceremony and in northern region part of the country, which were successfully conducted virtually, have laid the foundation for this southern part event and other upcoming regional events. We are confident these campaigns will not only bring in the behavioral change towards plastic waste and single-use plastics, but it will also create enormous opportunities for skill enhancement, wealth creation, improve public health, among others. I will not miss the opportunity to thank Srimati Supriya Sahu, Principal Secretary, Department of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of Tamil Nadu, Sri Atul Bagai, Country Head for United Nations Environment Program, India, and Sri Pradeep Evi, Chairman, Kerala State Pollution Control Board, for extending their kind support and addressing in the session today. With these words, I would like to extend my gratitude to all the dignitaries present in this forum and look forward to their continued support towards making a meaningful impact from this unique awareness campaign. Thank you. Jai Hind.
The campaign session for today is concluded. Thank you for joining. Have a good day. Stay safe.